guys read carefully what it's asking for, either the right or left side.
So whenever you're having that really bad pressure in your face, you can probably see all those pressure points there, right? It feels like it's pulling on your face in different areas. You got a sinus infection or stuffed up nose, pressure.
Do the sinuses have anything to do with like whenever you get a headache?
Yeah.
Cause like I had a headache yesterday.
They can
and it
contribute
was
to a
right
headache,
here.
yes. Yeah, they definitely can. I usually get a headache right here on the forehead.
Yes.
Have you seen a massage where like they put a balloon through your nose and it's like in your cavity and like
What?
they expand it?
What?
They what?
They put a balloon, like a deflated
Oh, I've heard about it.
balloon in your maxilla area, right through the nose, and they like expand it. And you
Yeah,
can hear it
my
crack.
husband had it done.
What is it for
I
though?
think not.
He had it done.
Yeah.
I thought you said a broom. That's
No,
why I was
no,
like,
no.
what?
A
Golly.
They haven't really cleared out.
Yes.
What you watching over there?
I don't think anyone's taking a balloon up my nose, sorry. No.
My husband had it done.
It sounds relaxing.
Don't they open
Relaxing.
it? Opens the
What?
sinuses? It does. It opens the
It opens
He
the
had two
sinuses.
options. He could get his, he has a deviated septum.
I'm not a
He could've
kink
gotten
shamer.
it broken and reset, and he was not for that. So he let them do the expanded balloon, and he been pretty good ever since, because his sinuses are terrible. Well, were terrible.
Everybody has it down. Would you get it now? Was that convincing enough?
No.
No.
Okay.
I'm not sold.
He wasn't sold either, I promise you. He still complained about.
On to the next slide.
So I don't know why I put these animations on there.
Huh?
Okay, so we have animation. So we have 5 functions of the sinuses. Okay, so number 1 is serves a resonating chamber for the voice. 2, decreases weight of the skull. 3, aid in the warming and moisturization of inhaled air. 4, act as a shock absorber in trauma. And 5, possible control the immune system.
I love how it says possibly, they still haven't completely scientifically proven that it aids
Yeah.
the immune system, but it does catch a lot of stuff in there.
Can you just grab one for me?
One,
Yeah.
it kind of helps you speak.
Speak.
It echoes.
Echoes, yeah.
Gives you power in your voice.
How does it decrease the weight of the skull?
I guess it's air. It's just air. It's hollow.
If it was dense through and through, it'd be a lot heavier.
Yeah, we all be like this. So
Like
Does
that?
brain matter?
It's my brain matter, just walking down.
Like wait.
Hey, hold up.
Well, you know, the more education you get, the heavier your head gets. You like start supporting it, so it's tilting over.
That's why your head is licking. That's why your head is licking.
That's a compliment.
My head's what?
Well, you said the more information you have.
If their head
the
is heavier in the
your head-
front,
Oh, never mind.
if their head is heavier in the front, it's more like you, right? Because you're
Sleeping.
I don't know.
So that's what you can say when you're sleeping in class. You say, well, oh, sorry, my head's so heavy with all this info. I couldn't hold it anymore.
Be like, so I can't sleep in class.
Show how much knowledge you have. Everybody has these 5 functions now?
Yes.
On to the next. So the development. Okay, so like we said earlier, the development of the sinuses begin in the fetal life. The maxillary sinus are usually the ones to develop enough to be demonstrated radiographically at birth. By 6 to 7 years of age, frontal and sphenoid are distinguishable from ethmoids. Do not fully develop until 17 or 18 years of age. So, like we said the frontal sinus is the one that develops around later, but also you can conclude with the sphenoid and the ethmoid.
If you just want to add on to that, where it says fully developed in 17 to 18, that'd be where that frontal sinus finally finishes developing. 17 to 18 years of age.
So does that mean you can easily get a fracture since it's still developing in the area? No. And another test questions. The first.
17 to 18 years only for the frontal sinus.
That's when the frontal fully finishes developing.
Oh, my apologies.
It's the last last one to fully develop.
And the first one to fully develop is what?
The maxillary sinus.
Yeah. Everybody has this down? Awesome. On to the next. So we have the maxillary sinus. Like we said, it's the largest, but and most symmetric of the two, because they both are kind of equal on both sides, correct? And they're paired. So again, if they're paired, that means they're always gonna have a right and left side. So make sure you read those questions, because they will get you. We just like taking a glimpse. And they can vary in size and shape between the person, you know, depending how big their head is, the knowledge they have. But approximately pyramidal in shape. So as you can see, it's more of like a pyramid shape. You can see how they're the same, right? As you can see on the frontal sinus, one is bigger than the other. Same thing as the sphenoid, one is bigger than the other. But when you look at the maxillary, it's more quite similar. Everybody good?
Thank you.
Alright, on to the next slide. Bless you. So now we have the frontal sinus. So this is the second largest one, and it's also paired. But this one aren't the same shape as the maxillary. So as you can see on the top of the frontal bone, one is bigger than the other. Varying greatly in size and shape. Occasionally absent. What do you mean?
I mean, sometimes people don't have them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Some people just don't have frontal sinuses.
Is
No,
that
that is cool.
only
They're eczema.
I would have to do more research on that. I'm not sure, but
pretty sure it's one?
yeah, some people are born without them. Or just don't develop, rather. And also, sometimes you'll have more than two. Some have
Three.
3, 4, 5 sometimes.
Ooh, where would the third one be?
They kind of get all sandwiched in between two big ones.
So now we're going in order from the largest to the smallest of the
That's
sinus.
not how it.
I assume so. You get the first
So
and
far,
second.
so good.
Everybody has this down?
Mhm.
Alright.
Hold on 1 second.
Herb. She getting that work done.
Previous one?
Yeah.
Previous one?
Excuse me? Go to the previous slide.
No,
You said-
the previous.
The previous slide, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this was not the
You
previous
went
slide?
back.
Oh, my
You
goodness.
went forward again.
I went for it. Oh, my apologies.
Good practice for TSRT,
You know what
right?
I'm saying? Yeah.
Stay on point.
Warming up the thumbs, you know? Trigger ready. Alright. So third, we have the ethmoid sinuses, located within the lateral masses, you know, lateral right here, located right here, composed of the air cells divided into 3 main groups. So we have 3 groups: anterior, medial, and posterior. As you can see in the image right here, it's just according to the face, the interior of the face and the posterior of the face, and just going front to back. So the anterior portion is located right here, the middle, right between anterior and posterior, and located at the back of that is the posterior air cells right there.
So ethmoids are like clusters, essentially. There's like They don't even give it a number because there's so many different little cavities. It's like a cluster of grapes almost inside the face.
You can see it real closely in the image. You can see how all the other sinuses, they're all one, but then this is little cracks in between. Just like little clusters, like you said.
It's like a little beehive, a little bit, like little holes in a beehive.
That's why it's yellow.
Is that why it's yellow?
Yeah, that's why. They have it yellow.
Yeah, honey.
The honey, exactly. Is there a function to this? Why it's separated?
Why what?
Why it's like this? Is there a function to it? Functionality?
It wasn't in my notes, so
Do these
holds more bogeys.
Bogies, yeah. Just notice.
Do these vary in shape and size too, or they're all?
I'm quite
Yeah,
sure.
they do. They're all different sizes. Like I said, they don't even give it a number because it varies too much between people.
You mean like have six, like? they're
Yeah,
all
it's a
very-
random number in each person. They're all little small clusters.
We'll do some anatomy pop quiz real quick. So what part of this is right here?
The Raymond?
No, that's sucked up in the TMJ.
Oh,
Oh,
Gone down, yeah.
Condyle.
And then right here, right in front of it, coronoid. So yeah, just remember these two, right? This long part, it's what? And then going down right here, body, and this little tip. Yeah.
You have to think about that too, huh? I saw you have to. You was like,
You call me
yeah.
lacking, you call me lacking.
It's okay.
We're all good on this one?
It's okay, we all lag.
Yeah, we are.
We're all human. So, fourth but not least, we got the sphenoid sinus. Okay, this is normally paired. Occupied body of the sphenoid bone. Often only one sinus develops, but never more than two. Varies in size and shape, usually asymmetric, and located below sella turcica and extended between the dorsum and the posterior ethmoid. So as you can see, it's the most posterior sphenoid sinus, right? So that might be a question right there. What's the most posterior sinus that we have? And it's gonna be what? Sphenoid, right? You can see in the image how it's the most farthest back.
If you're wondering what that one's for, it's kind of like a housing area for like if you have any cerebrospinal fluid excess draining out of the brain. It needs to be eliminated by the body. That will get infected usually if someone has a really bad traumatic head injury. A lot of times if you're having like brain fluid, like spinal or brain fluid leaking, it'll leak into that sphenoid sinus, and they'll be able to discover that usually with a CT. It looks like fluid.
Yeah.
Fluid in the sphenoid sinus would be a bad thing. Like it's going to get, there's going to be excess fluid, like the waste, but if you see an accumulation of fluid in the sphenoid, it tells you the person's brain's leaking, something's going on.
So it's usually just one.
It's 1 to 2. Often
Actually,
one.
it kind of contradicts itself there. It says normally paired, but often only one develops.
Yeah.
Never more than two. So I'm going to say omit that first statement, because I know more often than not they just have one sphenoid sinus.
Just one.
Yeah, I would just cross out that first bullet point. It might just be trying to say like if there is more than one, they're going to be paired up side by side. I think it's bad wording, but yes.
This is relatively unrelated, but you mentioned earlier the lack of the frontal sinus. It's called frontal sinus aplasia.
Oh, that's the name of it?
Mhm.
Aplasia?
Yeah.
Does it say there's any side effects or no?
No, it's completely normal. My question was that if it would benefit swimming, and it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
What was your thought
There's no-
process on how that would benefit?
What?
What was your thought process?
They could go deeper.
Deeper?
Oh, it's less
Air
pressure.
wise,
Pressure?
yeah.
Oh, okay. And the key landmark, so we said located below the sella turcica, as you can see, kind of really small to see. We have the sella turcica right here. It's located posterior there. So that's a good way, if there's ever like a hot spot, that's a good way you can use that to see
Look
what
at the sella turcica. It's right below it.
And what part of the bone is this right here? Yeah, the orbit, yeah. The orbit, yeah. Where the eye is? Looks kind of same thing. Just like this, the whole thing that we went over. Okay. Alright, everyone's good on this?
You have to know the posterior, anterior, middle, posterior.
Just know that it has those parts. You wouldn't have to actually label it. Because whenever you're looking at it on an X-ray, it all just kind of blends together. You can't really distinguish.
Going on to the next slide. So we go on to the review questions. Okay, number one, which parietal nasal sinus are divided into 3 groups? Ethmoid. And what are those 3 groups?
Posterior.
Yeah, that's on middle. Middle. Okay, anterior, posterior, and middle. So we get the ethmoid right here. Alright. Good job, guys. Alright, number 2. The only facial bone that contains paranasal sinus are the only facial bone.
It answers itself. The only facial bones that contain sinuses are the. Which one of those is a facial bone? Maxilla.
Which is right here.
There are 3 cranial bones.
Alright, gotcha. Everybody got this and understands why? It's the answer? Yeah. And sometimes some of these questions do give out the answer, you know? They really do.
Whoa.
Oh.
It's that trigger finger.
That's because Mr. Phone was banging on it.
That's a new clicker too.
He
He was banging on.
ordered.
Oh, they broke my new clicker.
Okay, so what type of x-ray is this, guys?
Check it out, it's
Yeah.
like monophones.
What type of lateral?
Lateral
Upright, right? You can kind of see the fluid levels because of gravity. So we already went over this. So we have the frontal sinus, right? Is it the first one or the last one to be developed?
Last one.
The last
Last one. And what's the most posterior sinus that we have? Sphenoid, right? Located right here. And you know the image that we went? So here's the ethmoid, located right here. And right behind it, we have the sphenoid. As you can see, you know I was talking about the sella turcica? Right there? You see how it's located right underneath there, right? So if there's ever a hot spot, you can use that sella turcica to find out where the sphenoid is, right? And with the maxillary sinus, you can tell it's this one because it's the biggest one. It's like a big old hole right here.
Max means max.
Hey, look, so that max, right? Max, biggest.
Oh, yeah.
Maximum.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Good job.
John's with the
I
confidence.
know, right? Hold on. Hey, you want to take it? I got
No,
you.
no. That's the only thing I know.
But everybody understands the whole concept of this, right? Everybody knows it's the 4.
You have to know because
Okay. And what X-ray is this?
PA. Yeah,
That's a
Caldwell.
Caldwell.
PA.
Logo with the peach.
No, that's a Caldwell.
No, it's a Caldwell. PA Caldwell.
Peachtree what? Peaches ridges, yes. There's a Caldwell sinus. PA Caldwell sinus.
Have a good day.
Random people walking through your door.
That happens at least like once a month.
Yeah, that
Someone
happens.
just like walks through this room.
Every semester we go get turned
He
on.
doesn't even know
That can be a killer.
Okay then.
You know these people.
We all know you.
I thought this was
Stranger
a
danger.
This is Peter Caldwell, right?
Yes.
PA Caldwell.
So this is Peter Caldwell, guys.
Yes.
So as you can see, kind of.
He's like, they need a.
So we have the frontal sinuses right here, as you can see, right there. We got the 2, and it's ethmoid. So people really get the maxilla and the ethmoid confused majority of the time in any X-ray they have, because it's. I guess they don't know where it is, but ethmoid is located where? Right here, right where the nose is, right
Yeah,
where the
yeah,
bone
it's
is.
Like where your tear ducts are, essentially.
So just remember that, and the maxilla is gonna be always lower than the ethmoid.
In your cheeks.
Near the maxillary.
Yeah. And then this right here, this is just air, so the mastoid tips, in case they ever answer that. So wherever the air is the most lateral, that would be the mastoid air cells located
Yeah,
right
don't,
here.
don't confuse those with your maxillaries, because you can see there's air there. Those are mastoid air cells that are not sinus cavity.
Just
So if you pop your ears, is that what pops? Like, you know when
No,
the
you're just releasing the air pressure from inside the inner ear.
Oh.
There's pressure.
And nothing to do with it.
There's always pressure there. It's kind of what keeps your balance in equilibrium. Yeah. yes.
The mastoid air cells extend all the way, or almost all the way to the mastoid tip.
They do, yes. Yes.
And then what bone is this right here?
The vomer.
The vomer, right? And as you go up here, making up what's the name of it? Say it louder.
Bony nasal septum.
Everybody gets that? Awesome.
Can you point out the anterior nasal spine?
Anterior nasal spine will be right here.
Simple triangle shape.
Kind of.
The triangle underneath the bone.
Not
right?
this one, not this one. That's actually the occipital bone back there that's superimposed. So you kind of see it like that curvy shape there?
Yeah.
Kind of where it has that little triangle there would be where the anterior nasal spine is.
Okay.
And whenever bones are
That's,
superimposed, the more wider it looks. So you can kind of tell like the anterior nasal spine is superimposed on a lot of skull.
Oh.
So it's a little white, a lot whiter right here compared to other things.
That's the name of Leah's ass too. So like,
Anybody have further questions on this one?
For a second.
So it's that tip, like, right
Yeah.
in the middle of the bone?
Yeah, right here. Right into it. Kind of see how it kind of
Anterior
all comes together right
nasal
here?
spine.
That's what it is. It's tips.
Top of the diamond right
Bless you.
Let's
Let's see.
So what's this bone right here?
The greater.
Oh, the
Wing
greater
of the
wing and the
sphenoid.
sphenoid.
No, right here. This is the orbit. Right?
Zygo?
I think
So this is the orbit?
I said cheekbone,
What is
your
this one here?
zygomatic.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I
'Cause
think
it's making up the orbit and the lateral side of the
So were you going around the orbit or like
yeah.
on the?
So there's the orbit right here,
Yeah.
and I'm pointing to this section right
Oh,
here. So the
okay.
base and then the lateral.
And it goes back.
Yeah, kind of curves in.
But the line that goes like this is the greater wing, right?
Yes.
We
Okay.
talking about this right here?
No, underneath that one. That's the one.
That's the greater wing.
Okay.
This here
And then
too.
a
It's like a vein.
And the petrous ridge is lateral or medial to that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if someone gave you an image like this, no wording or anything, how would you know this is like Caldwell? What would be the best ways?
The
The
lambda
lower
suture.
1/3 of the orbit.
The orbit, right? So that's a good indicator. The orbit, right? And what else?
Ridges.
You can see the four ridges.
For me, how you say it, the
The biggest
lamo?
indicator is the petrous ridges in the lower 1/3 of the orbit.
Yeah.
That's the main indicator. That's what's going to be always the answer to that question.
Can we
Yes.
also use the lambdoidal suture if we're
For
like?
determining for a PA Caldwell, you cannot.
No. Because it's kind of like superimposed.
Because it does appear like on the towns and other x-rays as well.
In that shape though?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it does. The biggest indicator, and that will always be the answer, is petrous ridges and lower 1/3 of orbits. That'll always be your answer. That's a really good question to remember too. They ask that quite a bit.
What was the I forget what you called it. Your shiv.
The shiv, that's in the temporal bone. It's that styloid process. You actually can't see it on this x-ray.
Yeah. Was it? No, I thought it was the ethmoid. The one that goes all the way up.
That's the Christa Galli.
Christa Galli, thank you.
Christa Galli is on there. Yeah.
The long line.
Alright, everybody understand this picture? Right? Okay, on to the next. Okay, awesome. Everybody should know this one, right? Everybody, what is this?
Water's view.
Water view, right? And what's the best way to understand this is a water view?
There's a
The
W.
petrous ridges are by the cheeks.
The lower.
They're below the maxillary
Below the
sinus.
So they're like deep down, like right
Deep in the water.
Deep in the water.
Is this the only one that has a W?
No, deep in the water.
Deep in the water.
Is this the only one that has a W? Like the way that it waters W?
Where do you see
Where
it?
is it, W?
Mastoid, or I'm sorry, the gunions.
Oh, I guess, yeah, it's kind of like a,
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's true.
it's kind of like a W.
You know what it is?
Kind of right here too.
Yeah.
You know the clerical thing, you know how it's his face?
Sure.
And then
I want y'all to be
the
careful.
orbits too, yeah.
I want y'all to be careful on the sciences on this one, guys, because where people make a mistake, again, I see a lot, is not only those ethmoids, but these maxillaries. People often label these as maxillaries. That's just space between the mandible and the other facial bones. Your maxillary are right to the sides
triangle you said?
Yeah, there's triangles right to the sides of that bony nasal septum and that vomer. Yeah. So be careful on that.
Mm. It's like baby triangles and big triangles, right? Kind of connect.
Big triangle and a
Big triangles and the max there.
And the big triangles.
Some geometry up in here. And another one, this used to get me confused, was the sphenoid sinus. So this is a big one to remember right here as well.
So that's showing you where it's at. Technically, we're not getting a good view though because the patient's mouth is closed and we see the teeth superimposed. We will learn there's a specialized waters. It's called a modified waters, where we do it the exact same way, but we open the mouth and we can see that sinus cavity through the open mouth.
We might have a picture.
I've got a picture later on to show you.
Everybody good on this slide? Alright, go into the next.
SMV.
SMV view, right? The way to remember it, SMV. It was like a
So we have the head straight back.
I think you said, this is Cindy, is that what you said?
SMV.
Oh, and SMV view. The best way you can see this is SMV view. The mandible will make this right here, the little V shape. That's the best way you can see it. And this is a good X-ray to find out what the sphenoid is. You see how a lot more open it is? You can kind of see it right here compared to the previous water view.
You can also see those maxillaries quite low at the top, too. The size of the teeth.
So,
Keep on it.
is it possible to have a mastoid, or like, is there a sinus infection for the mastoid? I know that there are air cells down there, but like, what's going on here?
There's not a sinus infection, but I know those air pockets can get infected. It wouldn't be called a sinus infection because it's not
Like
a sinus cavity.
Air cell
It just would be
infection?
called like a mastoid infection.
Mastoid infection?
Yeah. I'm glad you bring that up because once again, it's a mistake a lot of people make is that they say they're mastoid sinuses. They are not. They're mastoid air cells. We only have 4 sinus groups. And the mastoid air cells are kind of just by themselves. They're unique.
Is that what's causing this image to look so wonky? Other than core center?
No, it's pretty standard SMV.
This is the SMV.
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 Beside the teeth, and the sphenoid is right below the teeth.
By the way, you can't always see that, but it did point out for you the ovale and the spinosum. You can't always see those foramina on that cranial floor, but this one in particular, because the quality was so good, you can make them out pretty good. Rotundum's a little bit hidden. Rotundum is actually like about right here, but you can't really see it, it's clear.
And those foraminals, what part of the bone is that part of? Sphenoid, yes. Can't really see much. Can you see the ethmoids in here or no? I don't
You
think
can barely make out the ethmoids. They're kind of superimposed by the palate, though. You're like right here. That ear is. And sometimes on these SMVs, guys, this one's cut off. If this was centered lower, I'm sorry, if it was centered higher, you can barely make out the frontal sinuses at the very, very top on these sometimes. But that's not guaranteed on the SMV. It's not really an area of interest either. We're mostly looking at that sphenoid.
everybody has this and understands it. Awesome. On to the next.
That's kind of color coding it for you there. I always say, get some color coding going on. It helps me out.
So what X-rays this, guys? Everybody? What type of X-rays is this?
Water.
It's a water,
Water.
so you know.
Swimmers, what the hell?
You were thinking water. You were thinking under the water.
What the hell is that? Why is there an elephant there?
So it's a what?
The peaches ridges are below the maxillary sinus.
Yes,
Right.
they are.
Awesome. That's all you need to know.
Can we see the peaches ridges again? I said, you gotta know how to pick those out.
Yes.
You said something sounds like that.
It's like a little wavy.
Cause I'm thinking about water and like swimming.
It's like,
I'm not sure why there's elephants on the side of that face, but
is that an elephant?
it's like elephant.
Yeah,
hair.
it
I'm not-
does.
I didn't
Oh
know
no, I see it. Yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah.
that's
Yes.
funny.
It's the
Yeah.
bucket handle. It's the psychotic purchase.
Cyanotic arches.
I'm trying to
Oh,
figure out why
that's
there's that
cool.
elephant's
Yeah,
face though.
como que das?
I guess it kind of looks like an elephant's face.
For sure.
They got a long
Oh, yeah.
forehead.
And then
Look at the trunk.
and then look the sides of the
The tusk-
maxilla.
tusk.
They look like the ear.
They kind of do, yeah.
Mhm.
The only reason we noticed it
I
is
didn't
because of
notice that
elephant.
this image
Otherwise, we
was
wouldn't
so-
notice
I
it.
didn't even notice.
Yeah, I would never know that outfit.
And keep in mind, guys, I wanna make sure that you do use the right terms. I put this on here to help you color code, but remember, this is not, we're not gonna call this nasal and ethmoid air cells, it's just gonna be ethmoid sinuses, maxillary sinuses, frontal sinuses. We're not gonna use those same terms. It's just, once again, it's kind of color coding to help you pick that stuff out a little better.
Is that the infraorbital foramen on the, let's say, the left elephant eye?
Yes? No.
No.
I mean,
Can you go to the left?
That's,
The left image?
but that's away from the eye.
Here?
Yeah, but it's also angled.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't think so, because it's usually more central.
Right, but I mean, if it's angled the way it is, isn't stuff going to be magnified? Because
It would
it's
still
over
be-
here.
It would still be central because we're not adding a tube angle, we're just bringing the face up. So it still should be central. I don't,
It would be
that's
for
something
sure.
else, I'm not
But
sure what
it's,
that
it's
is.
not as central as we would think that.
So you don't really, yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
He's like, I give up.
Yeah, I
He was like, I don't know, I give up.
On to the next. Okay.
Yep.
So which sinus is this?
Maxillary.
Maxillary, right? And then which one?
More.
Ethmoid. You know, ethmoids are the small triangles, and then we go out here, so the bigger triangles right here. The maxillary. Alright. On to the next.
So the sphenoid on this one be like where the teeth at? Down near the teeth? Right?
You can't really see it. I mean, it'd be-
It's through the teeth, yes,
Okay.
but because the mouth is closed, we're not gonna label it.
Yeah. Okay.
Ooh,
Right,
you
that's.
still got more?
Still got more?
A little bit
What
more.
is it?
We're about to wrap this up though. It's kind of like a little review on morphology and topography again.
That's it, huh?
Yes.
No, we're still going.
No, it's not letting me go.
Oh,
no, there we go.
It did that.
Okay.
So,
So,
a little bit of review here.
morphology is so basically there's different shapes of the skull, right? Everybody has different shaped skulls, you know. That's why some people get to sleep a little bit more and whatnot. So the mesocephalic skull is a skull of average shape with 75-80%. And all you really have to take away from this is just that the mesocephalic skull is the average shape. That's all you have to take away from this one right here.
What was the other two?
We don't-
The dorsal something.
Brachy.
We don't need to know that the width is 75 to 80%.
That is good to know.
This is
That sounds like
Is
a
it a
test
test
question to me.
question?
Yeah,
And that's not.
that sounded like a
I'm
test
quite
question.
sure. No.
Perhaps.
This is 47 degrees.
What is the widest part of the skull, by the way? It's
Parietal eminences.
between the parietal eminences. Yes.
This is basically this big old thing right here. What bone is this right here?
It's the temple.
Squishy.
Temple is right here. You see how it has the arch right here? Yeah. It was this section called again? Does anyone remember? Squamous, yeah.
Squishy squamous.
Squishy. And that's the weakest part of the skull, right? And the hardest part of the brain, skull is peaches ridges. That's the hardest part of the skull, right?
Densest.
Densest
And
part of the
thickest.
skull is the peaches ridges.
Because the hardest is the frontal, right?
Yeah, that's why you headbutt like that.
This is
Being-
40s. 47 degrees. And the MSB.
Which one?
Yes. Just a review here.
Okay.
They went over this reviewing.
So yeah, this is just a review, right? We go over the major points on for the landmarks when positioning the skull. So we have the mid-sagittal plane, the mental plane, acanthyon, nasion, and the gabella. So those are the two confusing ones, the nasion, gabella. So make sure you get those two in check, and then you'll be good from here. So move on to the next. So the surface landmarks again, the gabella, nasion, acanthyon, and mental. So you have 4 points right there. And then we also have some ear anatomy that we went over like last week, I believe. So we have the pinna, that's the back side of the ear, the tragus, that's the little dot right there.
Where we get pierced.
And top of the year's TEA. And what's this called? Right here? TEA. Is anyone know the whole name?
External
Hey, okay. Hey. Okay. Now the orbits. How many bones were the orbits made of again? 7. How many facial?
4.
And then cranial?
3.
Perfect. And so we have the what's this, the superior orbital margin. Yeah, superior orbital margin, right? Because that's the top portion of your orbit. And what bone is this? That makes up frontal, correct? Awesome. And then we also have the outer canter, the outer side, and inner. Outer, inner, right? Self-explanatory.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
for your test, are we gonna be labeling this as the superciliary ridge or the super orbital margin?
So if I was showing you a face like this, I'd want you to do the ridge, not the margins. The margin's actually internal. You can't really see that unless we're doing an X-ray,
So we're gonna talk about the superciliary ridge.
which is where your eyebrow is. Okay. By the way, I'm gonna find a random face for your test, and you have to label a lot of these landmarks that he's reviewing here.
A random face?
Random face.
Is it gonna be
Your
from our
face.
class?
I
or
use
is
a
it gonna
different
be-
celebrity's face every year.
No, you should take a picture of
Who did I give y'all? Do you remember?
It was either
It's gonna use our
the
introduction
Terminator guy?
pictures.
It was Arnold
Yeah,
Schwarzenegger.
or the Rock. It was one of those.
He's gonna give us rock
I think it
and
was, yeah.
and he like, ooh, that man. got
That man is all frontal bone.
And his super similar to them all.
And then once you're done, we're back with the position of the skull, right? So most of these lines articulate with the same name as the pinpoints of the skull. So right, so we have this one right here. You can just tell it's the mental line, right, and the mental point as well. And it all correlates the same thing, going from the glabella, the orbital menta, and the lips. We also have the lips too, right here, going. Lip medial. It's like the lip medial is between the upper and bottom lip, where the junction is.
Lip middle. Yeah.
I think this one has an extra 2. I don't think you guys did an LML.
We
Did you
didn't
guys
do
you
We
guys-
LML.
didn't talk about L in yet.
LML is for the density, isn't it? Or is that the lower?
You remember?
Sorry, what?
Look, he didn't
Sorry, I was somewhere
I
else.
thought he was thinking if he taught or
I
not.
did that about
Where's your
remember
coffee?
asking you, sir, that-
He's a
Oh, yeah, that's
lot.
why rejection and live.
I was on
And he
something
said
I
it's
gotta
in the
work on here.
middle.
Okay,
Yeah.
LML guys, they've
That was-
omitted that from the curriculum. This is from Bontrager.
Ah.
So you can cross that out. We don't do LML anymore.
Good old BT.
It's just
They
one
removed
projection
that.
we learned in lab, and he's like, oh, it's in between your mouth. I don't know what that was.
That's
What
the
y'all doing?
But they have removed it from Merrill, so
I'm doing too much.
That's
don't
what's
worry
up.
about
I
it.
don't know.
That's something else they omitted in the new edition. Sorry, guys,
Gave up.
I was on my next project mentally.
Yeah. And then all these lines originate from the EAM. That might be a possible test question. They might say, where's all these skull positioning lines originating from? You can say from the EAM. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And just remember the ones that you did for the skull. Everybody get on this one? So skull positioning aid, right? So there's a lot of ways we can help position the skull. We can use foam, tape if you need to. You can use anything in the room that will help the patient to get in the proper positioning. So this is what would you call it?
Those are head positioning sponges, and a lot of these you see right here, especially with the sponges and sandbags, it's more so going to apply to your pediatrics. Most of your adults, unless they got tremors or something, are going to hold pretty still for you for the skull. But a child, obviously, think like a 2-year-old, if they're to x-ray their head, they're going to be flip-flopping all over the place. So we use these a lot, especially where I used to work. The ones I had were circular. I call them the earmuffs. The radiographic earmuffs. You can compress both sides of the head without hurting the patient. It keeps their head perfectly still and straight for you. And you shoot through those and it won't show up on your x-ray. That's what those are. That's like a little thing they can sit their head in. A little less successful, as you can imagine. It's like a little pillow. I guess that would be for you if you have an adult patient that's just a little wobbly. It would help keep their head a little more secure. On the top right is just one measuring, which no one's going to do that. But top, very, very top. Not sure why they have a spoon in there, but The rest is like your sandbags and other stuff like that. Either you smack them on the head or speak their brains out, I don't know. But these are your best friend right here, especially with kids. These little, I call them the earmuffs.
And if you can shoot through them, what are they called? And they won't show up on the X-ray?
Radios.
Radios. So on to the next.
He said that's good.
Are we still going?
Mhm.
Okay. So now we're going to the positioning and technical considerations when it comes to skull work or facial bone work. So we have the erect and recumbent. Which one is more preferred for the sinuses? Erect, right. And so the KVP range between this, the analog is 65 to 85 KVP, and the digital is 75 to 90 KVP. And the minimal SID is 40 inches or 102 centimeters. It's always good to know those two because some machines, when you work out, they might have the centimeters or they might have inches. So it's good to know how to convert those two. And then for the focal spot, small focal spot is necessary. Why is that? For better spatial resolutions, because these bones are a lot tinier than a humerus or a femur. So we're trying to find the fine detail in these facial bones. So that's why we prefer a small focal spot.
We're doing 40 and small for all of these procedures.
40 SID?
40
Yes.
SID and small focal spot for all of them.
And always shield your patient as possible, even if they say they don't. You don't need to anymore.
They're still working.
Still working.
For the lateral skull, would it benefit the patient at all to have a let's say lead behind their head for contrast, or is that only for spine?
No. So that's only going to apply to your L spine and T spine laterals, just because it's so thick. Head, even though it's a thicker area, it's not enough to create a ton of scatter. So I wouldn't use that.
There would be more absorption in there. And what about the sacrum and coccyx? Does that
Yes.
apply as well?
On the laterals of those, yes.
A lot of tissue. Everybody has this? Everybody got it?
Yes.
Alright, awesome. On to the next. So 5 positioning error, 5 most common. I'd say skull is the most part of the anatomy that can make the most error because it's just the slightest angle can significantly change the positioning of anatomy. So the top 5 are the rotation, tilt, excessive flexion, excessive extension, and incorrect CR angle. And does anyone know the difference between rotation and tilt?
Rotation is
Tilt is one
here,
here,
tilt is axis.
Yeah, tilt.
Tilt is on the long axis.
Rotation.
Yeah, awesome. And then there's a lot of angulations when it comes to certain positioning, so that is a big issue right there. And so as you can see, rotation right here, and then tilt is like this right here. So this is a test question right here. He might just give you a picture just like this, and he said, what is the incorrect positioning label right here? And you would say tilt, right? And the same thing right here, rotation. Everybody got this one though?
No, not yet.
Okay. Take your time.
It's like the only time I've seen head work done is like on older people, but what if they can't
Turn.
all the way?
This is try to
Try your best.
And then Ms. Bonilla
Work
said
through it.
oblique them as much as possible without changing the position.
It can be tough. It can definitely be tough.
And everybody knows the difference between flexion and extension, correct? Right. So someone show me, demonstrate what flexion is.
Flexion is introduced the ankle, extension is increase the arm.
Awesome.
Woo, Shiki,
I know,
you've
right?
been studying, girl.
Take the power.
The system and not
How was that rotation?
Excuse me?
That picture?
Yeah, rotations are here.
X-axis.
Like it's not
Kind of like turning into it.
X-axis.